Welcome, everyone, to Marked Out Radio. I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we are still in the middle of con season. It seems like it's never ending. I'm never home. Every weekend we're running around doing things, and I guess we can talk when we talk about this weekend. Dana was correct in predicting my my miserable outlook on the world after the past few weeks.
Oh yeah, you completely went like 96 Shawn Michaels. Your smile was gone. I was actually a little bit nervous you were going to just throw yourself overboard on the ferry yesterday morning. You were pretty bad.
We're still in the middle of it. But before we get to all that, there are a couple of I guess, quicker news and interesting factoids from the hobby this week. So first, the whole Jennifer Aniston story kind of blew up a couple of days ago. And what's really funny is I had no idea this was even happening. Did you know that Jennifer Aniston was selling signed books online?
I honestly didn't. I'm not surprised. I feel like every celebrity has some sort of a foolish like children's book that they are pushing, but I didn't somehow see her. It didn't cross my feed before it was already out.
Yeah, I mean, usually I'm pretty up on when A-listers are selling signed books. In this case, I like how you put some stupid children's book. It really seems that so many of these A-listers will put out like a cookbook or a children's book or some other nonsense that no, well-adjusted adult would want to read sincerely. But really, they're just selling them almost as cash grabs. As they're slapping their names on these projects. They're selling signed versions. And people gobble them up. But the Jennifer Aniston one is interesting because it actually calls into question some of the business practices and kind of the business model of Premier Collectibles. Premier Collectibles, do you know anything about them?
I do. I actually got my Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld. I got his book through them.
So what's so interesting about them is before, up until pretty recently, they were pretty much your standard autograph selling retailer. And then they kind of pivoted to this interesting model where they're partnering or helping partner for the past couple of years now. They're helping partner with celebrity authors to release signed editions of their books. But historically, when a celebrity, if you buy through Barnes and Noble, or you buy through a Books A Million or one of these other companies that specializes in just book retailing, you buy the book, you pay full retail price for the book. It happens to come signed, and everyone goes away happy. Premier Collectibles is kind of changing the model a little bit. They're offering JSA authentication on the books before you even get them at a premium price. Sometimes they bundle in. Isn't the Jaleel White, wasn't that, I shouldn't say isn't because it's over now, but wasn't that Jaleel White bundle with the Funko Pop? That was through Premier also, right?
I think it was.
So where they'll offer, and they've done it with other people too, where they offer these bundled items, a more premium kind of item at a more premium price, and so they're kind of taking this, they're kind of upending the model, or they're twisting the model of selling signed books by adding other premium concepts to the product and then charging a premium price. So it's kind of it's a merging of the worlds of secondary autograph retailing with primary autograph retailing, and they're kind of the only ones in the space that I can see, or at least they're the biggest vendor in the space doing that. So why am I giving a history on Premier Collectibles? Well, the Jennifer Aniston book signing, there were some done through Books A Million, there was some done through Premier, and then there was at least one other retailer that was doing them. And Jennifer Aniston, as you said, it was some stupid children's book. It was something about a dog. That's all I need to hear to know. I have no interest in it. Or that's a children's book, quite frankly. In any case, the way she was doing it, she was signing book plates. So this is if you're in the signed book space, the difference between book plates and title pages is a kind of a hot thing in that world. Do you care about the difference between a book plate and a signed title page?
Typically, I mean, if I wasn't planning on making a cut, then yes, I'm aware that a actual like the bound page is more valuable than like the book plate. But ultimately, I just want a nice clean background for the signature. I don't want it to be on like a dog's ass or something that like doesn't lend itself well if you want to incorporate it into a different piece.
So in this case, well, there are a couple ways they do the autographed book. So sometimes the celebrities will autograph the books after they've already been published. And in that case, they'll have someone open up each book to the title page. They'll sign each book. In recent years, they've kind of stopped doing this, except at signings where fans will go to the signings directly. Usually these days, the large scale signings are done in one of two ways. Either celebrities will sign just these tons and tons and tons and tons of extra title pages. They'll send those title pages to the publishing house, and then the publishing house will bind in those title pages so that they're bound in after the fact. That's kind of a cool way of doing it because it's kind of a seamless experience for the fan. The fan doesn't even realize that it was done separately from the rest of the book. Yeah. And then the more common way is they sign book plates. And now, like everything else, the book plates are starting to become retailer dependent as well. So a book plate that's a very fancy way of saying a sticker. And the celebrity signs the sticker, and the sticker will have some kind of branding. So years ago, the stickers were just blank white, basically 3M stickers, like mailing labels, basically. The celebrity would sign them, they would stick them on, the retailer would stick them in to onto the title page in the book, and everyone would have them. Nowadays, the book plates often come branded with the retailer. They'll often have designs on them from the book itself. So the Jennifer Aniston book plates, they have like a picture of a dog in the background, and it's very busy. So the idea that you were going to perhaps, or someone would cut this signature out and use it on a project for, like, so let's say a friend's project or something like that, it's just not feasible because it would look really ugly.
Yeah, I think the dog would kind of ruin it. If it was at least like a smelly cat or something, you could tie it in, but it's a dog.
Woof. So in this case, what's really interesting about this, and what's kind of lighting the internet on fire here, is that the Premier Collectibles book plates, they were all, when I say all, I mean 100% of them signed with a dead Sharpie. And so there was lots of controversy about this because on one hand, you have people saying, be happy it's an autograph at all that you only paid, $20 or $30 for, that you didn't pay a huge amount. It's Jennifer Aniston, her signature is valuable. I looked at these. Did you see pictures?
I did. While scrolling my feed, I saw them. They didn't look great.
Yeah, they look horrible. Let's see what it is. I mean, on one hand, it's like, look, they're all horrible because it's a stupid book plate with a dog on it. On the other hand, there's not even the pretext. There's not even the pretense of effort here. Every single one just looks bad. And so there was this kind of quality control question. Like what quality control, especially since Premier was the only retailer offering JSA on its signed products. And Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, they don't care about this stuff. They sell huge volumes of books. Premier was offering JSA. They were advertising a premium product. And yet, if you look at the book plates that were done by book or through Books A Million, those were done with fresh Sharpies. The ones through Premier were done with Sharpies that looked like they had gone through a wood chipper, where they were, when I say dead Sharpies, the quality and appearance of the autograph is significantly different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't really know what to say about this. Do you have any strong feelings either way?
I don't want to make this a signed book episode, so I'm going to try to be brief in what I'm feeling. First of all, I think it's unfortunate that the company that seems to be catering more towards collectors in terms of what they present as a product have the inferior product. I think offering JSA is maybe not so much as offering a premium item as much as an authentic item. And in this world today with books and CDs and auto pens and forgeries and whatever, I think that's the important thing, that this is signed by actually Jennifer Aniston, assuming you trust JSA. So I think, the dead Sharpies, unfortunate, but it doesn't really counteract what JSA was providing, which was this assurance it was real. And my other question was, like, do we really think, I don't know, I'm not really sure how a lot of these like big book signing deals work. Do we think there was actually someone there from Premier, like, overseeing her signing them with the dead marker? Or is it a situation where all their boxes come in, they open them up, and that's what they found? Which, I mean, still, as a retailer, you have a responsibility to provide a good product. But were they able in the moment to sort of steer it away from this, and they didn't? Or they were just clueless, and that's what came because they weren't there?
I don't think that we will have answers to that
Yeah,
question, because anyone who has the ability to answer that question won't answer that question. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that
exactly.
Premiere is not, because either way, think about from the perspective of Premiere Collectibles, they have one of two choices. They can either say, "Oh yeah, we really have no control, and the celebrity just sent us this because the celebrity doesn't care about our product," which makes them look bad, or they could say, "We were in the room and we didn't even think to look at the pen," and that makes them look bad. So
Yeah,
there's no scenario here. It's just a question of fault, but they don't look, powerful and in control in any scenario here. Their product is
no,
inferior to their competitor's product, and to be honest, the reason why doesn't really matter. It just at this point, someone who is choosing a retailer for these things might look at Premiere and say, "Well, they claim to be offering a premium product. They claim to be tailoring their marketing towards collectors, and they produce an inferior product to Books a Million." And Books a Million is they are they're shoveling as many books into the market as possible. They have no pretense of being a premium retailer at all. And
no,
so it is a little bit interesting. It doesn't look great for Premiere, and a lot of
definitely not.
the threads about this were critiquing Premiere. And I don't think I don't. Yeah, let's put it this way: I don't think I've ever bought anything from Premiere. It's possible a few years ago I might have, but it was something so insignificant that I wouldn't have remembered anyway. So
Yeah,
some book or something, but probably not. I don't ever recall ordering anything from them, so I really have I don't really care either way. I don't. There's something about the business model that makes me feel weird about trying to make something premium in the signed book space. To me, like, the signed books are the lowest of the low in terms of items. They are the least desirable items, but sort of by
yeah.
design.
When I've bought signed books, it's because I want to actually pay the full retail on that person's signature, so I buy the book. That's why.
Right, you're trying to get someone's order on the cheap,
Yeah.
basically.
So my closing point on this would be, as a customer, as a collector, always just be aware, like when you're sending something in or you're ordering something, quality control is very important. Now, whether Premiere was in the room and dropped the ball or they weren't in the room, quality control was not in place. And that is a real thing. And I know you and I, from a business level, we have opportunity to acquire product from a source that we are not necessarily confident in, and we're not going to be there to watch our own backs. We set them out 10 times out of 10 times because quality control is everything. I could sympathize with Premiere if you opened all these boxes and you find just trash. Because what do you do?
Well, I mean, look, let's. So we did a signing once where the circumstances were, rather than being in the room for the signing, we had to mail the items to the celebrity, and they would get mailed back. And actually, we did that 2 or 3 times. 2 times it was fine, and then 1 time all the items came back bad, damaged.
Yeah,
and the signatures
at that point,
with the wrong pen, and as a result of using the wrong pen, some of the autographs were rubbing off, and now and I hate to say it, but you all don't see us advertising these products in public because right now we're sitting on these things. We're not sure what to do with them because the quality is too low to market properly. Since one of the things that we really care about is marketing a high quality product that stands apart a little bit from our competitors. We know that because of the volume that we're not doing tremendous volume like some other companies. So the way we stand out and the way we justify the prices that we charge is by guaranteeing the highest quality images and the highest quality signatures, and and high quality undamaged items. And so we do have items in our I don't know what you call it, the marked out warehouse that are not fit for public sale, and we're not really sure what to do with them. And that's because we sent them away. We weren't in the room. That was kind of the option. We didn't have a choice. That was the option that was presented, and it definitely informed our future willingness to do that.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not as willing to send stuff out to a guest directly, or even with a trusted friend, vendor, whatever, business associate, because when you're not in the room, you don't know what you're getting, and if you're not the one directing someone to use a pen or making the decision to change pens or what have you, then you're at the mercy of whoever's doing that, and whether it's Jennifer Aniston herself, whether it was someone on her team, whatever it was, someone at Premiere is taking responsibility for this. And so I know a lot of people were trying to get refunded and stuff, and we'll see how that plays out.
Definitely not good.
So we also had an interesting user. I don't know if we call it user content. Basically, this was posted. This was actually sent to you, right?
Yes, it was sent to me by a guy I know. I know from a lot of these events, and he's a listener of the show. I don't want to name his name because he was reaching out to us about the Woodbridge Brewing Company, which is a venue in New Jersey that it is what it sounds like. It's a brewing company. It's like a bar, restaurant type place, I believe. And they host a ton of signings, Yankees, Mets. Now they have some Sopranos. And he reached out to me. I'm going to just read one key point of his message. That their pricing on this insane amount of signings they have is all over the place. And when people like question them about their pricing, they blame it all on the management of the players. And this was like on my radar. I was talking to you about it. And then last night when I was perusing Facebook, I stumbled on a signing announcement about Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos. So I know when you first saw the price, you said it was a little bit high, correct?
Was it $129 to meet Michael Imperioli?
I believe $149. I think it was $149.
That's very high. It's very high. He's done appearances for not that long ago for significantly less than that.
No, $129. I stand corrected. It was $129. I just checked. It was $129, which is still kind of high. But anyway, so the how they operate, interestingly enough, is every single person attending needs a ticket. Amusingly enough, and not really amusing, but just like it made me want to talk about this. Someone we know commented and said, "Could my wife and son be in the photo with me?" Now, mind you, the son is 9 years old, and the store commented it's one ticket per person. So the guy asked again, "So my 9-year-old would need a ticket?" And he said, "Yes." So if you want your 9-year-old in a photo with you, that's an extra $129. And from what the user that reached out to us told me, that the owner has expressed to him that they would rather have 100 people in the room so they could sell more beer than, let's say, 50 people getting 2 items each, because that's less beer.
I guess in a sense, they don't want your 9-year-old there.
No, your 9-year-old's not going to drink beer. I mean, and if the 9-year-old wants to drink beer, they don't want the liability. So the 9-year-old is useless to them, which is kind of crazy.
So I wonder how we're going to view this, because I think we might view this topic a little bit differently. I've thought a little bit about this, and truthfully, this is interesting because the way that Woodbridge Brewing Company is running these signings is how signings used to run. Not exactly, but they ran closer to this years ago than they run now. So it used to be a pretty common thing where restaurants, car dealerships, other kinds of places that wanted to generate foot traffic for their retail store, they would bring in these guests. They really weren't trying to make money on the guest directly by charging a fee to meet them. That was sort of an advertising expense. It was a marketing thing. I remember back in 2007, I went to, I can't remember I guess it wasn't that great of a marketing push, because I can't remember the car brand, the make dealership that I went to, but I went to a car dealership back in 2007 because they were advertising Rey Mysterio. And I went, there was a huge line. They didn't charge anything. They wanted people, and then as you were going through the line, they were asking you about your car, their trade-in value, and they were trying to get you to buy a car. And so I'm sure they paid some kind of appearance fee to, WWE at the time. And they got Rey Mysterio to come in. He signed. He took pictures of everyone. But the point of that appearance was to generate foot traffic at this dealership. And it used to be. I remember when I was a little kid, and my parents. There used to be that restaurant. It's not that popular anymore. I think it's an East Coast restaurant, the Ground Round. Have you ever heard of it?
I have.
So it's like a chain restaurant. It's a kind of a low end chain restaurant. And we used to go there every time, like I had a school concert or one of school event, like the thing that my family did. We went to the Ground Round. So I remember one time I had to have been. I was a little kid, 8, 7, something like that. And we went into the Ground Round, and in the Ground Round they had a couple of New York Jets just there, and we didn't know it was just there. And I remember, I think his name was Wesley Walker. Does that sound familiar?
I don't follow the Jets at all. So, I mean, it sounds possible.
I'm 80% sure it was Wesley Walker, a New York Jet, and there was a second guy I don't remember, but I remember they were there sitting at a table, and my family just went in to eat, and then like I remember the manager came over to our table and was like, we have some New York Jets there. Do the kids want to meet them? And my parents like, I guess so. Why not? What the heck? And we went over to them, me and my brother, and they signed 8x10s for us, and those 8x10s have been lost to history. They're long gone. And that was that. But so I don't think the ground round was not expecting to make any money. They weren't charging anything to meet the Jets. They were just there hoping to generate traffic, and I don't think they did a great job because we didn't even know they were there. But also, it was a different time. You're talking about probably the late '80s, or it had to be the late '80s, maybe 1990, but probably the late '80s. And so, the concept of advertising was just different back then. But then it's a little weirder because this Woodbridge Brewing Company, they want to use these ball players or these actors as a draw for their business, but they're also it's because the appearance fees are so high, and also because these celebrities will no longer make appearances for free. Meaning, I said that the wrong way. They will no longer make appearances in which their autograph can be given out for free. A lot of these celebrities will have deals through their agents where even if you're a car dealership, or even if you're a business, a restaurant who wants to bring them in to generate foot traffic, you have to charge for it because they want to maintain the value of the autograph. They don't want a million free autographs out there that are going to lower the value. Or they might do this thing where you can give out free autographs, but it has to be on like a promotional menu for the restaurant or some other stupid thing that's branded, so it'll have no secondary value. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing they do now. So the business has changed a little bit. I could have walked in and got helmets or jerseys or footballs or whatever signed by those Jets in the 80s, and no one would have batted an eye. And now today, when Michael Imperioli goes to a brewery, they want to charge you $130 on top of whatever beer or finger foods or whatever that they're selling. And look, I know that we in this hobby are trained now that you pay, and as a result of your payment, you get to have certain amenities when you meet a guest. But I understand and I empathize with a brewing company that is trying to use the appearance of these actors and these ball players to increase foot traffic. I empathize with them. They don't want little 9-year-olds in there getting free photo ops. I understand why the family would want to go there and expect to get their 9-year-old a photo op. I totally get it, right? They see a baseball player appearance or an actor appearance as an opportunity for a family outing. But it's a brewery. Little 9-year-olds shouldn't be at a brewery at all. Breweries are for drinking alcohol. They're 21 and over. And so I have a little bit of a different take than a lot of people who might listen to our podcast. They see it's preposterous. I'm paying $129 for a combo. If I pay for a combo at a con, of course I can have 2 people in my photo. But in this circumstance, I think the venue has an interest in not allowing it. I think the venue has an interest in not allowing collectors to walk in and with stacks of items and try and get extra item tickets, because they're trying to generate foot traffic for their business. They don't want you wielding your carts of stuff. It looks weird. It looks weird to the people who are there to drink, have a good time, and say hello to a celebrity. And so I feel look, is this going to come off as tone deaf, and will Woodbridge probably take a beating in public for this? I think so. Are they wrong? I don't really think so. What are your thoughts?
Here's where I think they're wrong. Like, I agree with you. I don't love their tone towards customer complaints. He said, like, someone pointed out what it's like at a con. He said, then please go to cons. Like, I understand. Then he's like, we are a restaurant unlike the con, so your wife can have a seat. Thank you. Like, it all just seems angry. There's definitely a way to just make your point and not seem angry and hostile. But where I get annoyed, and it ties back into what our user sent us, our listener, about the place blaming talent management. They commented, we don't set these rules. You 1000% set these rules. Michael Imperioli did not call you and say, make sure all 9-year-olds buy tickets. They didn't. They set these rules. Stand on the fact that this is your business and you are running it like you just said. You don't want collectors. You don't want kids. you are building a brewing company following, and you want people of drinking age that are going to come in and say, this place was so fun, I don't care if a celebrity is there, let's go next Saturday. Stand on that. Don't go blaming talent. Don't say it's not our rules. It is your rules. There's no way that Dwight Gooden or any of these people that they bring in have these weird rules about every person in the photo must have a ticket when they don't care if there's 3 people in a photo, a family of 3, for example, at a con. Talent does not care. You care. And that's fine. They're entitled to care. And if people with 9-year-olds and other people don't want to go, they're entitled to not go. But just stand on the fact that you're making these decisions, not talent.
I get that, but I think with they're following the age-old rule, blame that management, right? In the same way that when you go, and you see it on Facebook all the time, when you go to a con, and you know the celebrity has an upcharge for something or has some asinine rule, and then there are people who always go, oh, the celebrity was so nice, but the management made them have these rules. Now, we've already talked about before, the management is always playing the heavy. Management is the scapegoat for the desires of whomever. They're the scapegoat for the con. They're the scapegoat for the talent. That's their role. They're the shield for these other people who can't afford to be the shield. And so it's also possible. I'm not saying it's 100%, but it's also possible that Woodbridge spoke with whoever's management, and management's like, sure, make us the bad guy. I don't care. We don't. Doesn't matter to us.
Something tells me this guy did not have that sort of foresight to actually reach out and clear this with management. I think he's just throwing them under the bus just to get out of the heat. And if people started, imagine people believe this and they go on Instagram and start cursing out Imperioli because he doesn't want their child in the photo. And
I get it.
What the hell are you talking about?
I get it, but at the same time, look, he's already catching heat for saying we'll go to a con. If he would actually say, your children are not welcome at a brewery, it's 21 and over, you can imagine the meltdown these people were going to have. So he's kind of in an impossible spot. He's running an adults-only event, but because of the hobby being what it is, people are not seeing it for what it really is. And I understand why, because he's charging for a combo. The problem is they shouldn't charge anything for these kinds of appearances, but I am certain that Michael Imperioli's appearance agent will not allow him to appear and sign autographs and not charge the public, because everything now, the whole business of it has changed, and everything now they're concerned with secondary value and not flooding the market and all these things that 30 years ago no one would have even thought about. 10 years ago, no one would have thought about flooding the market and devaluing your piece count and all these asinine things that we talk about on the show all the time. The things we always joke that normal people don't think about, that we think about because we're not normal. And I think that's what's going on here. It's a clash of two worlds. One world is the con world, the celebrity appearance world, where we exist in a certain paradigm of thought. We have certain expectations for how these interactions are going to go. The other world is a brewery where people go to drink and act stupid, and that's fine. That's what these people have no concept of what Imagine like arguing about a pen swap at a brewery appearance, or asking how many words your quote can be on your item, or these things that normal people would look at with incredulity. They wouldn't even be able to understand what the hell you're arguing about, and yet these are the things that consume the people in our hobby, because we care about such things. So I think that's what's going on here. I think it's a clash of two worlds. I think you have the reason why this clash is even happening is because our world of our hobby world has changed so much and has become so hyper business oriented in the last few years. So I look at this topic, I find the whole argument kind of amusing. I think if people had to take a step back and think about, is it a good idea for me to bring my 9-year-old to a brewery? I think if you ask people that question pointedly, they might process that that's actually inappropriate to bring your 9-year-old to a venue whose primary purpose is to produce and sell alcohol. On the other hand, I also know that some of these breweries do promote family kind of style events, because who drinks beer? Moms and dads, and moms and dads have to cart their kids around places. So I also know that the venues play this game as well, where they're trying to draw people in and extract the most money out of them. And I do agree with you, though, that the owner or whoever the social media manager is for this company is very, I'll use the word prickly online. And so I'm amused when business owners are prickly like that. It never really ends well for them because it just inflames the people who are most likely to get inflamed, and I think a simple standard customer service practice, which is, I'm really sorry, but we're trying to limit the number of people in the door.
Yeah, there was definitely a better way to handle it. I'm not
is
a huge
the way
fan.
to handle it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of how they run their socials in general, but that's another topic.
Yeah, and frankly, not our business. If
Yep.
a company wants to be mean to its customers, that's it's an interesting tactic. I don't think I would do it. And in fact, when we were first starting Marked Out, we had conversations about how to handle when someone is, overly dumb. Like when a customer, makes unreasonable demands or makes criticisms in public that are not reasonable, how to handle that. And that's something that, look, all businesses have to navigate that. Because people, when you work with the public, people are ridiculous creatures. People complain about things that are totally unreasonable, and they have expectations that are unreasonable. But if you're willing, it actually goes back to our consignment episode where all the consigners whine and complain and cry when they have to actually perform customer service. And it's like, well, you take money from the public, you got to perform customer service. That's how it works. So I do
chose this life.
Yeah, you chose it. You at some level, Woodbridge Brewing guy, you chose to become a brewery, and you also chose to book celebrities as a method of advertisement. You could have just taken out ads on the radio.
Yeah,
you could have just made a commercial on. You could have bought a billboard, and you wouldn't have to deal with 9-year-olds. But although I'm not sure who's bringing with a 9-year-old. Was the complaint about the 9-year-olds about baseball players, or was it about Michael Imperioli?
Michael Imperioli.
I mean, that's hilarious in and of itself, because who's watching their The Sopranos with a 9-year-old?
Listen, I would want my 9-year-old to meet Chris Maltasanti, so I'm not going to say anything about that.
My favorite episode, my son's favorite episode, is when Christopher was out of control with cocaine use. I mean, it's pretty.
Listen,
funny.
He will appreciate it in time.
So I do find that whole. And then there's the whole theatrical nature of the complaint also. Oh, my 9-year-old, we're supposed to evoke images of this kid with, watery eyes who's being denied something and his candy bars taken away or whatever. That's how, again, the tale as old as time, how people try and manipulate each other emotionally. So yeah, Woodbridge Brewing Company is definitely a place to watch, I think, and see how their upcoming signings work and as they continue booking people. And I think what happens with a lot of these places and what's been happening lately is, they do a few high-profile bookings. They absolutely lose their shirts, paying way too much for these appearances, and they stop doing it. And I am willing to bet that that's what happens with Woodbridge Brewing Company.
Yeah, they can't keep this going forever.
So if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com. Check out our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, please email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the official Marked Out Collectibles marketplace on Facebook. And all links to these things are in the show notes on Facebook and Substack. I just want to, speaking of an email, I'll give it only 15 seconds. The identity of the mystery person who approached me at Chiller last week was actually a longtime board member. It's just I had made the joke that we all get older and forget what each other look like, and that's what happened. So it was someone who I hadn't seen in a long time and didn't remember what he looked like, and that was that. But it was still cool. So we're ready to talk about Rhode Island?
Yes, let's get into it.
So the first thing about this show that is, I think, significant is the sheer volume of guests and the sheer volume of high-profile guest cancellations. There's a truly shocking number of guest cancellations. And I remember for the past few weeks, every couple of days you would text me while I was at work with another cancellation. And I was like, all right, I'm wanting to go to the show less and less and less and less and less.
Yeah, when you read the list, I'm looking at my screen right now, the list of the cancellations, you're talking like that. That in and of itself, if you made a con with just that list of people, that would be a con that would be well attended. It was the amount of cancellations was astounding.
Yeah, I mean, so just to get this, so you guys get an idea, they were planning on having, they were advertising an American Pie reunion, and they got Eddie K. Thomas and Chris Klein and Sean William Scott. I don't think Sean William Scott has ever done a con. Eddie K. Thomas might have done one. Chris Klein might have done one or two in the past, but hardly any. And that number might be 0, actually. And so these are all rare con guests. Mina Suvari, who very rarely does anything. Tara Reid, who does stuff. And Thomas Ian Nicholas, who also does stuff. But it was kind of a cool reunion. And then Sean William Scott drops off a couple days before, and it just wrecks the reunion.
Oh, yeah. Because you already didn't have Jason Biggs and Allison Hannigan. Sean William Scott was like the last, like, you know, in the American Pie world, like the last A-tier name. And then you lose him. Like, you know, a group photo op, for example, with the B team is not that appealing, at least not to me.
No, I felt bad. I was walking by, and the American Pie people just didn't have, I mean, Thomas Ian Nicholas will always draw a little bit because he was in those other movies, like what's that movie?
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year, yeah.
Yep.
I know that's like those like stupid '90s movies, and like, I just never got into any of those movies. But I get there's a certain nostalgic appeal to that, and the fact that he, you know, if you want to photo op with him, he really hasn't changed much since he was 13 in terms of his appearance. So it's kind of amusing. But like I walked by, Eddie K. Thomas had no line. You know, Tara Reid had a handful because she was also in Sharknado. Chris Klein had a line only because he wouldn't shut up and just would talk to people endlessly, which is like, look, that's funny. I hear they were having a great time. I get it, but their cons were ruined. Make no mistake, by Sean William Scott canceling. It's actually similar to what I complained about with Freddie Prinze in the New York Comic Con show. We also had Cole Sprouse cancel at the last minute. All of the live action, all but one, I should say, of the live action Avatar guests canceled. That Netflix version of Avatar. The whole they had Saved by the Bell mini reunion of Elizabeth Berkley and Mario Lopez. They both canceled. Hayden Panettiere canceled. Heather Graham canceled. John Bernthal canceled. Mary Louise Parker canceled. Ray Park from Star Wars canceled. Ric Flair canceled. The total number of cancellations, and I know you admonished me because this number does not tell the full story, but 28 total guests canceled. Now, as you pointed out before the show, some of those guests were clearly replaced. Replaced.
Absolutely.
But not all of them were. Not all of them were. Some of them were canceled within the last couple of days. 28 cancellations for a show is astonishing. That's the only word I can use for it. It's astonishing. There were fewer cancellations during the COVID year shows. No, I remember when I did a Boston Fan Expo in the heart of COVID, there were like 16 or 17 cancellations, and this is 28.
Yeah, it's wild. Just to give a little bit of context here, Ric Flair's I guess former stepson passed away tragically a few days earlier. That cancellation was a real kick in the nads for me because I had the Hasbro and the Galoob, which is just insane that I bought them to begin with, but I did, and I was ready to go. So that stung, but I understood.
And honestly, for Ric Flair, he should have canceled. That was the correct thing to do.
Yes.
Cancel his appearance.
Hayden Panettiere is either in rehab or fresh out of rehab. She's been dealing with substance abuse. I think that crossed my feed. So that is understandable. And I'm not going to judge any of these people's cancellations because who knows what they're having, go on in their lives. But on a convention level, that is an astounding amount of high-profile guests to just have fall off the wayside.
Yeah, as you said earlier, if you take that list of 28 and you make that list of 28 into a con, that con draws.
No question.
Which is wild. I mean, Sean William Scott is arguably a headline-level guest with the number of high-profile roles that he's had and the number of movies and things that he's had that were successful, and he's never done a con, so there's the rarity factor. And to have a headliner, and Cole Sprouse is a headliner too, I think, with his... The Disney was he Disney Channel or Nickelodeon? I never remember.
I think I didn't watch it, but I think it was Disney. That Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and then he's in that like creation bubble where he has the female fans that come out because of Riverdale, where he's always going to be on that like headline fringe because he's going to have the people that come out for him. Yeah,
I mean he's a very well known, very big name. And so, I mean, the live-action Avatar people, live-action Avatar is a hit for Netflix. I know they've been doing it. I wonder if they canceled en masse because there was some kind of filming or some kind of, official duty related to Netflix. Because these are people who are not particularly well paid. They're kind of young kids. They're in their early 20s, and they could definitely use the money. So I'm not sure why maybe the con decided to cancel them because they had too many guests. There's also, by the way, some of that stuff that happens. A con will cancel guests when they realize they've gone over budget, or they get a yes to a big budget ask, And one of the things that is crazy about this con is I mean, even when we talk about the guest list of people who canceled, the guest list of people who showed up, it's a multi-million-dollar budget for
Oh
guests
yeah,
for this show.
massive.
It's a massive, massive, massive show. It's one of the biggest shows. It's got to be up there with the. I mean, it's not a show like a San Diego Comic Con or a New York Comic Con that is really about exhibitors and stuff like that. It's not that tier. I think that's the AAA tier. But this is definitely an A tier show like MegaCon or Steel City or these big cons. The budget here is astonishing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like you said, you compare it to a New York Comic Con, like it's not that in the sense that there's that much more to do. Like all I really noticed there beyond the combos was obviously the vendor room, which is usually junk. And then they had some Blockbuster experience, which that was a ticketed event. So it looked like you would, I believe, I didn't go close enough to see what it really cost, but you were paying extra to go to the Blockbuster experience. Like there was like, you did that Dexter thing at New York Comic Con. You just paid with your time of waiting in the line. That was included in your admission. So it's different, but yes, it's definitely a high profile show.
And so, I mean, yeah, it's a really interesting experience to go to a show like Rhode Island. I mean, it is a massive, massive show. I believe they have some kind of slogan that's like the biggest show in the smallest state or something to that effect.
Yes, that is it.
And they really sell the idea that this is a massive show. People travel from all over the country, all over the world to go to this show. So let's talk about it because it is a really interesting show. It's very, very different from a New York Comic Con style show. There's going to be a lot of interesting sort of observations about it. So I guess we'll start out with what are your overall impressions of this show?
I mean, I spent too much money, which is that's my overall impression with most shows.
It's a running theme of our lives, yeah.
Yes. I had more after the cancellations left you far more decimated than it left me. Your just con fatigue was sort of at I don't really get con fatigue. I assume that must mean I'm more deranged than you are. I love being home on weekends, but at the same time, like when the con season's going, I view it as if I'm like, I'm off at war somewhere and this is just what I got to do. I enjoy it to in parts. It's fun, sort of. And I just do it. You get very, very, very burnt out. But to be fair, I don't do 4 days at New York Comic Con. You do. And that's a big, after that, I mean, I could imagine just being completely just dead to the world. But I thought I got everything I wanted. When I went into the show, I had a list of who I was getting. I was nervous that maybe I was biting off more than I could chew. And I managed to accomplish everything. So on that level, as we break it down on a more minute level, I'll get into more things, but overall I left satisfied. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was going into the show. We were riding the ferry on the way in, and I said I really wish I had canceled going to this show. I really didn't want to go. And a lot of that is, as you say, it's fatigue. Going to these shows is just a lot. You're not home for days at a time. And you go and you're around. For me, a big part of it is being around so many people all the time is exhausting. I don't want to be around all these people because there's a certain amount of like getting jostled all the time when people bump into you or having to be in these spaces where you really can't breathe because you're surrounded by people. That's very fatiguing. At least it is for me. And so, doing 4 days at New York Comic Con, then doing Chiller, now doing this and knowing that we have something next weekend too, I was really in a bad way. I was really just in a bad mood, but we got there. And I actually ended up having a pretty good time. So my list was a lot shorter than yours. So I'll run through my list first. So we ran in, and I was on the fence for months about whether to get Matt Lewis, who played Neville in Harry Potter. But I know Matt Lewis has become a little bit of a meme in recent years, and so my kind of standard. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan or anything. I don't really care. But it was always interesting to me when people kind of break out of their traditional role and they take on this other interesting meaning. And so that's actually kind of my theme for this show. So, I got Matt Lewis, and actually I was on the bubble about getting him, and then you ended up having it. You had an extra Funko that you sold me, which then I guess sold me on just doing it. So I have the item. So I never sought one out, but I had one. So let's just go for it. So I got him first, which was fine. It was, he was good. He was trying to watch soccer while he was signing, and he was joking about how it's unprofessional, but I can't help myself. And he was very funny about it. He was trying to, and he really tried to give people an engaging an experience as possible. There was a humorous thing that went on. I don't even know if you noticed it because you were like organizing your pens and stuff. But did you see what happened with the lady who was right before me in line?
I don't believe I did.
Oh, it was hilarious. So they paid for she and her adult daughter paid for an autograph, and then they got the autograph from him, and then they go, "Can we take a picture?" And he goes, "Sure." And the agent,
yes.
And then the agent freaked out because they hadn't paid for the photo op, and so the agent had to have the awkward interruption where he's like, "Matt, don't do it." And he actually admonished Matt, who stepped back, and he's like, they need to pay for that. And then so the woman was in. It was one of those things. She's not a seasoned con goer, and either that or she played the part really well. Some people, they feign ignorance at these things. I do know that, but
yeah, she had me fooled.
And she starts rummaging through her wallet and pulling out singles, and it was a whole fiasco. And she pulled out this wad of unorganized bills, and she had a certain amount, and then she goes, "Hold on." And so now everyone's standing there awkwardly. Her daughter's standing there awkwardly. She runs to who I believe was her husband in a different line to yell at him to give her more cash, and he gives her a single dollar bill. As if she had $59 and needed the $1. And so he gives her the $1. She goes back with the $1. The daughter's trying to frantically unfurl all of this money and count it. And I don't even remember. They were way short. So they had to run to the ATM, and it was very funny and awkward. And it sort of encapsulates this thing where you're standing behind someone in a con who has no idea what they're doing. And sometimes it's amusing, and other times you're just like, I want to be done with this. Get out of the way, please. And so it's very hard sometimes to deal with. It's a good example of you dealing with the public who are just incredibly annoying sometimes, and that was a funny moment there. But
for the record, not to interrupt, but for the record, I was not fiddling with my pens at that point. That was the time I was pulling out my wand. And
so after that, I did Ernie Hudson. Ernie should write a book on like reverse aging or something. Ernie is what's that? The Brad Pitt movie.
Benjamin Button.
He is a Benjamin Button. Ernie looks fantastic. He looks younger now than when I saw him 10 years ago at a con. I don't understand it fully. He's delightful. He's so sweet. Such a fun, interesting guy. His handlers were like the nicest handlers I've ever seen at any con. They were like, "Oh, please take pictures of Ernie while he's signing your items. Oh, he loves that. Oh, please. Oh, here." They were just over the top, nice and friendly in every conceivable way. And so was Ernie, but it was interesting because Ernie was upcharging for quotes, which I understand. He's a very elderly guy. You don't really think that Ernie Hudson is elderly because he's so jacked and he looks so young, but he's old. And when you see him write, you can appreciate his age a little because he writes very slowly and very deliberately. He has really nice handwriting. So they did offer a quote menu, which I saw a few. Some of the anime actors offer this, but I wonder if this is going to be a thing in the future. But so they had different upcharges for quotes, say like a $20 option, a $40 option, and a $60 option based on the length of the quote. And they had basically 8 different quotes, or 8 or 10, I forget, different quotes. And you would say, "I want quote number 6." And they actually had a giant laminated card in front of Ernie, so he could just look down and copy the quote. So if you paid for quote number 6, he would look down and copy quote number 6 off this laminated card. Quite an interesting model, honestly.
I'm not going to lie. I like it.
And it worked really well. It made the process efficient. You didn't have people trying to tell me your favorite quote, and the $20 option was for something like "I love this town," from Ghostbusters, and the $60 option was a much more complex, a 10 or 12 word quote, or whatever it was. So it was all reasonable, it was all fair. And it was interesting, and it went out without a hitch. Ernie, and then because I have a sort of a rule now, an insane self-imposed rule: if I'm paying extra for quotes, then I'm also going to get them to switch color pens to make it look nicer. Because if I'm paying, then I'm getting a premium product. It's kind of my outlook. So I had Ernie switch colors in the middle, and his agent kept commenting how the color switch was a brilliant idea and how it looks amazing and how smart I am. And I didn't invent this, but it was pretty funny, and they were really nice. And again, Ernie was fantastic. After that, I went to and I got a photo op with Jojo Siwa. Again, it's a running theme because Jojo Siwa is a meme now more than she is a celebrity in her own right. Against someone who started out in one area of show business and then branched out into so many others and has become this public figure now in a very lasting, interesting way. And I mean, obviously, I am not part of the demographic that is targeted by Jojo Siwa and her products, but I'm just interested in general in people who are interesting internet presences, I guess you'd say. So
yeah,
and she was delightful. And it was
and
actually
for the record, with Jojo Siwa, Star and my mom both know who she is. So apparently, I am just lost. I was clueless to who she was.
I find that fascinating because we made jokes that you didn't know who Chapel Roan was.
Yeah,
Jojo Siwa is several orders of magnitude bigger.
No, I'm realizing that my algorithm, I guess, is just a slave to like 90s hip hop, wrestling, Mets and Knicks, and I guess that's really all I see, which is not really a good thing. I should try to work on diversifying my algorithm.
I mean, forget algorithm. I remember years ago when she burst onto the scene when she was like 12 years old, in a reality show, Dance Moms, and I remember years ago, my niece when she was, now she's 13, but when she was like maybe 7 or 8. The Jojo Siwa, her personal sense of fashion, she used to wear these giant bows in her hair, and so that she influenced like this whole generation of little girls to walk around with these giant bows. And I had to buy her a bow for one holiday. It must be a Christmas gift or something. But that she's had an impact on pop culture. So and I know now she has this social media presence where she plays this kind of unhinged character. You're not really sure whether it's real or not, whether it's shtick or not. I gotta be honest. She was very delightful. She was really friendly, overly engaging with fans in a way that was really, people were thrilled. Everyone left happy talking to her. But it was really interesting because I was talking to her. It wasn't her handler. It was the woman from Altered Reality, the company who runs Rhode Island Comic Con, who was helping get her line set up. And she had mentioned that Jojo Siwa, this was her first ever con, and that she was really, really nervous about making sure that she was professional and did her job. And so she actually showed up Friday 2 hours early before her call time so that she could scope out the building, scope out what the process looked like. And she actually asked the workers to, tell her what to do and how to make it a good experience. And so she wouldn't embarrass herself and make sure that she did the right thing. And it's very interesting. You have this girl who's 21 years old, this young lady who's 21, who went out of her way to be hyper professional. And meanwhile, other times we see these people who are much older who are just self-absorbed jerks. So that was really interesting. That little factoid from the employee was very interesting because it speaks to, I guess, how someone becomes an international celebrity by 21. Frequently, it's because they behind the scenes have these incredible attention to detail and are really thoughtful about how they're presented in public.
Yeah, I mean, that level of care, it says a lot. Obviously, that whole debate of why do stars do appearances? Clearly, she's there to make money. It's a business. She's there to keep, engaging with her fans and grow her presence. That makes her more money. But the fact that you care to do a good job and make it, engaging and fun for the fans, that's the whole point. Yes, you're there to make money, but you should also be your goal should be to give your fans a good experience. And it's really refreshing. Even though I didn't know who the hell she was, it's refreshing to hear that someone with 11 million Instagram followers cares enough to do that.
Yeah, and I rounded out my show. I've been, over the past couple of years, completing a collection of the signed Star Trek The Next Generation pops. And so these guys don't do cons as frequently as they do. So I've gotten, Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner and why can't I remember his name? Reading Rainbow, Geordie LaForge. LeVar Burton. I'm so embarrassed. I've gotten LeVar Burton. I did the private signing for Patrick Stewart. So I needed Michael Dorn, Worf on his Funko Pop. And so, he's a very low key, quiet guy, and he did not disappoint. He was low key and quiet, and I got him without any incident. and I was also there to get a couple of items. I actually finally got my the stuff that we got signed by William H. Macy. I mean, that was close to a year ago, right? Or 6 months at least. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
And I finally got that done by JSA at the show since I had some extra space in my wheelie cart, and that was it for me. So it was a pretty light show, but I actually it's funny, once I had the fantastic, the Matt Lewis interaction made me laugh. He was very funny. He was very engaging. The Ernie Hudson was fantastic. Jojo Siwa cracked me up and was fantastic. And it's like I had these really positive experiences that made the show actually very fun. And it kind of uplifted my spirits a little. Do I want to go to the con next week? No, I would rather be struck by lightning repeatedly and attacked by bears. But I'm going to anyway, and I'm sure I'll have a good time also.
Anyway, I'll run through my list, which was longer. Matthew Lewis was extremely engaging. My experience was just, it made me laugh because where somehow we got on a topic of Long Island. He texted his friend to see what town they lived in. I did obviously know of the town because the guy responded instantly. Then we're talking about baseball and the World Series, and his Dodgers beat my Mets. Now we're having this dudes conversation, and then it's time for the photo, and I'm like, here, can you hold your wand? Which, I mean, I felt a little embarrassed about, but listen, it's Neville holding Neville's wand, so I have no regrets. After that was actually the last time we laid eyes on each other for the entire show.
Yeah.
So after that, I went over to the Helen Hunt line, which, as I expected, she really didn't draw tremendously, and we discussed this on the ride in. She's not really a name. Her stuff, Mad About You, was very popular, but I mean, sitcoms are not typically things that really are catered to at cons. And it wasn't one of those iconic sitcoms. It was a popular one, but it doesn't really it didn't shape the world in any way. And the movies she did, like Twister, and they're not movies that people at these cons are really going crazy about. So she didn't draw that well. So after I got done with Lewis, I went over to her line, and as I walked down her aisle, she wasn't there. So I asked the line person, what's her ETA? And she told me that she went for a break and she'd be back. So she's like, you can wait. And I said to her, there's not really a point to wait. There's no one online. I'll hit a couple more booths and I'll come back. And then she dropped the bomb, which, I mean, we've touched on this before, but it just amuses me in general. She said that Helen was not going to return until the line was around 20 people deep. And she said that, I can't tell you to wait, but if no one waits, it's going to take a lot longer for her to come back. So I joked around that I was going to start selling hot dogs at the table. So, the line could fill up quicker. And luckily people came up behind me, and then, the line grew, and I don't even know how long I was on that line, probably 35, 40 minutes. And finally, I guess the line was to her liking, that she wasn't embarrassed to, be sitting at an empty table, and they called her to come back from wherever the hell she was, the bowels of the building. What do you think of that practice of not being comfortable sitting at an empty table?
I know we've joked about this, that this is a thing that some celebrities do. You said that you heard that Roddy Piper used to do that.
Yes.
Look, I do understand that there is very, very, very damaging reputational issues with sitting at an empty table. You get a photo taken and uploaded, and then you become the next Virgil or something. And there were so many of those memes with Virgil sitting at an empty table. And I get that. I understand why it's embarrassing. At the same time, it's not a great practice. You're there to work. Just work, smile, and maybe think about what you could do to draw more fans, whether that's lower your prices, whether that's provide more attractive items at your table, or more images at the better images at the table. Whether it's engaging with fans more, and as they come up, talking more and kind of killing more time with each person to allow a line to build up. It's kind of there are productive ways of doing that, and there are unproductive ways of doing it. And it's kind of embarrassingly unproductive to say they're going to wait until a line builds up. That I mean, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But it's something that you just roll your eyes, because and you say a lot of these agents, you got to wonder, because the agent's an idiot. Because I think so, because there are lots of productive ways to generate interest in and revenue for your client. Figure those out. But a lot of these agents, you got to wonder how they came upon this job, because they don't do that.
Exactly. And the whole thing, it's one of those, like, you don't understand that an empty table is inherently going to detract people from even walking down the aisle to find out when she's coming back. I had, 15 people to get. Like, my instinct was to leave and come back. And if they didn't tell me that what the story was, I wouldn't have waited. And then when would that line have built up? How much more time are you not making money because you're not at the table to make money? And to me, I'd rather see Helen Hunt at an empty table than be told that she's doing this, because here we are now. We're talking on the podcast about that. That to me is more embarrassing. That shows that you're insecure. That shows that you are, that you're hyper aware and hypersensitive of every interaction, that you sort of need to be, made to feel like that you are famous and that you are big and that you have fragile ego. And I get it on some level. Helen Hunt is no Meryl Streep, but at the same time, she's headlined movies with Hanks and Gibson and Nicholson, and she had a big sitcom. And then she's sitting next to Dermot Mulroney and Roger Jackson and these people that are, known for, the Scream franchise mostly in that regard. And, they have people after, person after person after person on a constant string, like Helen Hunt, Roger Jackson. Who's a bigger name? So if you're Helen Hunt, you're watching Roger Jackson, who you could honestly say, who the hell is Roger Jackson if you don't know about these franchises, and you see him and he's churning people out, and then you're sitting there. Like, I get why you would feel maybe a little insecure, but you're like you said, there's organic ways to build up a line. There's organic ways to get a bigger line. To just run away and then come back is silly. But whatever. She came back. She was nice. I can't complain about her. She was nice. She signed. I did an 11x14 of Twister. She added a quote that I asked her to add. She was nice. No complaints. I left Helen Hunt and I went on to Tatiana. I think it's Maslany. I don't really know how to pronounce it. The girl from She-Hulk, the girl from Orphan Black. And I pre-ordered a table selfie. And I remarked to you while we were on the Matthew Lewis line, she had like the big like KN95 mask on. She was behind plexiglass. I looked at you and said, well, what the hell is that? Like I don't begrudge anyone's choices, but I'm like, I'm not paying, whatever I paid, $75 for a glary selfie with her in a mask, like behind the plexiglass. I was definitely going to demand a refund. And then I watched her interaction, and which is in a way almost more confusing because it kind of goes against like the whole idea of having a mask and plexiglass in the first place. She allowed fans to stand next to her. She took her mask off for every photo. I guess she had less exposure, sort of, for autographs and conversation, maybe. But yeah, so that was fine. She was nice. A guy in front of me, I should say, as he was getting his photo, it wasn't like a super inappropriate thing, but like he like grabbed her around the shoulders, and it was like a very like tight squeeze that she was like pulled into his armpit region, and she looked like uncomfortable. And then the handler like said, "Oh, please don't touch her," to the rest of the people. I've noticed it's becoming a thing, which I'm happy with because it makes, like, whenever I split something, it makes it easier. More and more of the female talent are getting to a point where they don't really want any real touching, which I can understand because you probably have guys every weekend you do one of these. There's probably a handful of people that just do things that are inappropriate. But like 10 years ago, like I can't even think of a female talent that didn't let you put your arm around them, and now it's becoming more of a thing. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, I do notice it. Let's face it, most of these fans do like the hover hand with the little curled claw fingers anyway near these women, so they're not even touching them. The vast majority of these weird, a lot of the guys are kind of weird and kind of socially awkward, and they don't really touch them. So it's, if anything, if I'm being honest, it's women who typically touch celebrities far more than men do. Women are going for hugs and things like that. The guy fans are way more awkward, and they do like the hover hand and stuff. So I guess they don't. I mean, that's like maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. I don't know, but that's kind of what I've noticed. That's maybe they're kind of protecting themselves from that, but it's whatever.
Yeah. So I moved on from her. Stephen Bauer I got from Ray Donovan, and Scarface. You really don't know who this guy is, which kind of surprises me, but I guess that's like me and Jojo Siwa, sort of. He was nice. Nothing really to say beyond that. He was nice. After this, I left the ice. If you haven't been to this show, and we're going to dissect that in a few segments, there's like a difference in the ice portion, and then you have to like migrate to a whole different part of the building. So after this, I left the ice and I migrated to the 3rd floor pavilion. So first of all, there's a log jam of people getting from the through the arena corridor down past the entrance, and you sort of go through this little like almost it's like double file, but it's very tight. And you got
they call it it's a skywalk, right? They call it basically.
Oh, that's actually the skywalk?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the skywalk. Okay, so I go through the skywalk at literally a snail's pace. At first, I was going to try to do a little run around the wheelchairs just to move quicker, and then I realized that the wheelchairs were not going to move any slower than anyone else, so I didn't even bother being rude. I just walked behind the wheelchairs because we were all just going at a snail's pace. Finally, we get through. I get in the vendor room. Let me just like set the stage. And if you're in our social media page, like I posted a photo that Greg Izzy took. It was ridiculous. And of course, I made the poor decision of going in on the opposite end of the celebrity. So I had to really just, hoof it through the whole thing. Did you make the same mistake, or did you go in the door that was more convenient?
I went in the more convenient door, but it was still an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Something needs to be done.
Yeah.
I actually texted you. The fire marshal was going to get called. This show is dangerous.
Oh,
that room was dangerous to be in. They had so many celebrities in this gigantic room, but there was no ability to form lines in front of their tables. And some of these people, look, they brought in some of these anime actors, these voice actors. They brought in Ashley Eckstein. Ashley Eckstein can draw hundreds of people to a con. She's a massive draw. They brought in Colleen Clinkenbeard, who's the voice of that One Piece guy, the One Piece character, which she draws hundreds of people to these shows. Like, some of these people, Ashley Eckstein should be on the ice. Colleen Clinkenbeard,
I don't know how she wasn't
on the ice. These people are huge draws, and even someone like the Hardy Boys or Kane, these people draw, and there was nowhere for anyone to stand, so people kind of bunch up, and you can't really figure out who's in line, who's trying to move. You start yelling, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" Because people. There's also, when you have these cons that draw more casual fans, a lot of people we call them, the inside term is looky-loos, but basically they just stand around in awe, and they kind of just look around in shock at what they're seeing and don't move. And when they don't do that, it actually creates such log jams and creates such a problem that it only exacerbates the crowding situation in these areas. So that room was, I would use the word dangerous, and I stand by it. In that area, I really was not happy with the way it was set up. I don't know a solution. We'll talk about solutions. Let's finish this piece, and then we'll talk about solutions to it.
Yes. So the first one I got in there was Lex Luger, who luckily didn't really have a line. Like you said, a lot of the wrestlers didn't, but he had really no line. They the pricing is nuts. I think he was like 80 something. I forget what the combo price was. I wasn't getting a combo, but it was high. And I was afraid. I know we were joking on the boat ride over how I was going to get completely just raped on the Hasbro, because I had a Hasbro. So I purposely left the Hasbro in my cart. I said I want one autograph. She, of course, the handler goes, what do you have? And that's how you know that premium pricing is there. So I said an action figure. Mind you, with the Hasbro still in my cart. Not sure if that made a difference, but I figured before I drop a mint Hasbro and the Defender on the table, and even give them an idea to try to throw an extra $20 on it, let me not give them that option. They said $80, which is nuts. I remember right at the COVID rush, he was still like a $40 graph, then a $50 graph, and now apparently he's an $80 graph. But whatever, he is. So I got my Hasbro done. Lex was a gentleman like he always is. He it looks great. So I moved on from Lex, and I hit I attempted to hit the Rick and Morty people. But the 3 of the 4 were AWOL after their photo op. The handlers didn't know where they were. They would do back a half hour sooner. So I got Chris Parnell again, because I had, and you kind of mocked my decision, which I think is deserving of mockery. In the 11th hour, I decided to run an 11x14 of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, there's just creating extra items for yourself, and I don't know.
Listen, no regrets. Star loved it. So that's good. But anytime you can spend $160 on autographs and have that actually make the wife happy, I guess that's a good thing. So she likes it. I like it. He was, nice as he always is. Then, since the rest of the Rick and Morty people weren't there, I moved on. They were like these tight little rows. So you had to to even go row to row was like a thing where you're fighting, like swimming upstream through just people. And it was extremely, I'm not a claustrophobic person, but I mean, I looked around that room and I'm like, I'm going to die if, God forbid, something happens. Like if someone shoots or some fire breaks out or anything, you're done. But we will get to the solutions in a moment. So they had Amanda Righetti and Derek Mears from the new Friday the 13th movie. Not the greatest movie in the series.
I like how you say new, and that movie came out 15 years ago.
Well, listen. I don't know who Jojo Siwa is. I'm still watching for Redman's new album. Like I'm delayed, so everything's new to me that isn't new. So yeah, the poster is sick. It was actually what I found extremely refreshing. Those names, not Kane, of course. Kane Hodder is, he's Kane Hodder and he plays his game differently. He got away from this, about a year ago. But Amanda and Derek were both doing autograph with free selfie. That's something you never see at like a Rhode Island type con, and it's something you don't even see really at horror shows anymore. So that was cool. That was a nice little old school horror throwback. Like I budgeted like extra for the upgrade for the combo, which you couldn't pre-order on the website, and I didn't need it. It was free. They both, she did a great inscription that looks awesome. She's really nice. He's really nice, as he always is. That was a very positive experience. After that, I went back to Rick. You texted me that the Rick and Morty people were back, because I think at that point you were still at the JSA table.
Yeah, I was just I was kind of wandering around by that point. I was finished, so I went to the JSA table and I was trying to check out the vendors, but I didn't really see anything. I had to make a work call, so I kind of stopped. I stepped out for a bit. Once I finished with Michael Dorn, I got my JSA stuff. I kind of just wandered around aimlessly in a fugue, in almost like a fugue state, not really paying attention to what's going on.
But at least you paid attention enough to see they were back. So I went back. I got Harry Belden on the print. The new Morty. He's always cool. Nice, easy experience. Then I went over. I attempted to get Spencer Grammer, who plays Summer, and it was actually apropos because I always take this stance where I'd rather be behind a consignor or someone with a lot of items than a life storytelling fan. And that's still my stance, but I mean, karma kind of came to bite me for that one, because as I walk up to the table, the guy in front of me, he had some branding on his box. I forget what it was. It was something like comic books. And he had literally, I'm not even exaggerating, he had 75 or 80 Rick and Morty comic books. And he had a deal worked out, I suppose, where he was getting them signed right there in public at the table. Which, I mean, if you have that kind of a volume, I feel like you should have worked out some sort of a backroom deal. But who knows? Whatever.
Look at you complaining about table bulks like a convention Karen.
I know. Listen, I could be a hypocrite a couple times an episode. I think I don't think it's excessive.
I do think it's funny though, because as you rightfully pointed out when we were on the ferry home, that table bulk is probably the only way that that Spencer Grammer booking makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad about it. I wasn't complaining. I did make eye contact with the handler, and I kind of, I was, I've done enough table bulks where I couldn't be outraged, but I was hoping she would take pity on me and say, "Oh, you only have 2 things, just jump in front." She didn't, which I don't blame her. That guy probably was handing over several thousand. I handed over maybe 130. So, I mean, money talks. So she said, come back in a few. I came back in a few. I went over, and this is where just insanity went. It's just, a bad moment that wasn't really bad. I went over to the new Rick, Ian Cardoni. I had my 2 items done, and I upgraded to a combo. So I upgrade to the combo. I'm getting my items done. At this point, I had my Helen Hunt Pro photo up in 10 minutes. So I'm watching my watch. I'm watching the guy next to me with Spencer Grammer if I have a chance to get her before I leave. I didn't want my items to smear. I get my autographs. I grab my items. I let them dry. I hightail it to Helen Hunt. So as I leave, I fight through this vendor room. I go to the escalator to go up because you have to go up 1 floor actually I like a floor and a half, because you get to the next landing and then there's like a half a staircase. So I go up the escalator, and as I'm going up the escalator, I realize I forgot to get my Ian Cardone photo op. So I realize I'm running late for the Helen Hunt photo, but photo ops are almost never on time. And I realized that my life was going to be harder if the handler forgot me. So I run up the escalator, I run down the escalator on the other side, and back I go. I fight through the crowd. I tell the handler that I completely forgot the photo op. They remembered me. I took my photo. And it was actually, my stupidity actually helped me, because by the time I got back down there, Spencer Grammer was done with the bulk. So there was like one fan in front of me. I said, screw it. Helen Hunt's still going to be there. And I got Spencer Grammer done. That enabled me to not return to that hellacious vendor room again. So that was very nice. Spencer Grammer was cool. Funko, my print, all good. I raced back to Helen Hunt. Helen Hunt pro op was fine. Helen Hunt didn't really care if you like put your arm up behind her. Like she was, her demeanor seemed less friendly than it actually, like she leaned in for the photo. She was sort of talkative at the table. She seemed kind of like dry or weird. She wasn't super friendly, but she was fine. So after that, I'm trying to see what I did next. I raced back down. Oh, I did the Priscilla Presley. That's what I did. You judged me hard for this.
I didn't understand it at all.
Listen, it doesn't make sense. I can't justify it really in any way other than to say that I watched the Elvis movie. For some reason, I had some weird like historical need to get Priscilla Presley. Star is for some reason now a big Elvis fan. She was like excited I was meeting Priscilla Presley. See, the thing with my wife, and I'm actually appreciative of this, because I mean, I think it would probably be crazy if she went to all these things. I think she'd be miserable. She appreciates what I do. She likes to look at the stuff I get, but she has no desire to go. None. She went one time with you and I thought she was going to murder me. Like, she does not want to be in line, and I can appreciate that. But she enjoys when I show her what I get. She likes that I like it, but she doesn't want to do it. That's great. So she popped for Priscilla Presley, so that was nice. It was unnecessary, though. After Priscilla Presley, I raced back down to the ice to try to get Dean Norris from Breaking Bad. When I tried earlier, he wasn't there. And, of course, when I got back now, he again wasn't there. And he didn't have big lines from what I heard all day. And these people don't understand that you can't make money if you're not at the table. Is that a complicated theory?
Well, it's just a matter of it's an ego thing, right? You're supposed to be making money. And who knows what their agent or what the con tells them. Yeah, you're gonna be seeing fans all day, and so they get there and they see Skeet Ulrich have just an endless stream of screaming girls at his line. And I can understand why someone can be a little bit beaten down by that.
Yeah.
And so I get it, but I remember when I worked in retail many years ago. I worked at Best Buy when I was like 22, and the store manager would always say, "You can't sell a product that isn't on the shelf." The whole point was to get stuff out of the back room and put it on the shelves, because you can't sell it if it's not out there. And they're right. You can't sell autographs and photo ops if you're not at the table. And your presence is what attracts people to the table if you make your presence attractive. So I get it. I understand the psychology of it. I understand why especially someone who doesn't do a ton of cons, might be confused and hurt when they don't get any, action.
Substantial
for lack of a better
business.
word. Yeah. But at the same time, that's the job of the agent and the management, to clue them into how it works. And oftentimes they don't do that because they're not bright. No. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case here. I don't know these people from a hole in the wall, but you see it's enough times that you get a sense that that's what's happening.
Yeah. So that was fine. He came after like 15, 20 minutes. There were actually some interesting fans and collectors on the line, so we had a nice little chat going. That was good. So I left, and then I had a little bit of time to wait for the JD Pardo pro op. Pro op wasn't necessary. I made the mistake of pre-ordering it, which we'll get to in a moment. He was nice from Mayans and Revolution, and that was cool. So here's my big troubling thing, which I'm still dealing with it. It was the entire car ride back to the ferry was honestly spent with me just tormented and just going crazy about this. we've discussed on this show before how if you pre-order a photo op from Epic and you miss it or you no longer need it or whatever, it's easy to get a refund. You said you did this very recently at New York Comic Con, correct?
I did.
Well, at Matthew Lewis, starting the day, I had a photo op pre-order that was $90 plus the $15 JPEG. I think it's $15 now with fees and whatever else, like $110. I just did it because it was an early pro op, and I figured if somehow he doesn't do table ops, I'm screwed. Illogical, irrational fear. I easily could have bought it on site and still made it. It was dumb. It was a mistake, but I was kind of uncaring of the idea that it was, not the needed move because I always took it for granted you could get your money back. So he was $60 at the table for a tables op. I said, screw it. I'm going to take the table op, and I'll just get my money back on the pro op. So, as I already discussed, great experience. Photo turned out awesome. And when I left the ice and I was going upstairs, first place I went was the photo op booth. I did my normal song and dance of, that it was a purchase I didn't intend to make, accidental purchase, whatever. Typically, they just refund you once in a while, they'll hit you for the fee, which is whatever. And the girl's like, he didn't cancel. We can't refund. And I said, since when? I said, a friend of mine did it at New York Comic Con a few weeks ago. So she's like, we've changed since Leap bought us out. But if you email them, they'll be able to take care of it. I didn't love that answer because I'm like, I have nothing tangible in hand. I have this photo op that's going to happen in 10 minutes. Like, what do I do? Do I trade it in? Do I take another photo because I'm stuck with it and be an idiot that paid for two? So I went to another guy. I went to a guy on the other end of the booth to get another opinion, just to make sure that this was the right thing. He said the same thing. He's like, you want to exchange it for something? I said, I already got everything I wanted in this order. I just don't need this. He again said, email them. They will take care of it. So I said, okay, very nice. I left. I wasn't happy because I kept lamenting to you, like worrying about this, but I figured, what else could I do? I trusted the process. So long story short, when I was in line for, I think it was JD Pardo, I emailed Epic. I had nothing else to do. I emailed Epic. I did my song and dance like I've done a million times before and figuring, okay, this is all good. On the car ride home, I check the email and I got an email back. And they said, unfortunately, it was past the cancellation point and we are not able to refund. Mind you, this is 5:30 in the evening. And they said, please trade it for something else or gift it to someone else. I mean, the photo took place 5 hours ago. So this is where I kind of put on my captain shades and I penned a slightly strongly worded email that I was told by two different employees that I, didn't have to trade it in and that you would be able to resolve it via email. And I said, had they told me I was completely screwed, I would have gotten a table autograph from anyone just to have something for my money. And I sent another email. They asked me to name the staff that told me this thing, but I mean, I didn't take note of their names. Maybe I should have. I poorly described them. I said a tan individual with a mask. I said a woman with piercings and makeup. It was bad, very bad description. It's a good thing I'm never a witness to a crime. I mean, that was just bad. But I haven't heard back yet. I'm going to go deeper kangaroo if I have to, because I mean, I understand they don't have to refund you, but when they should have told me that at the table, like, no matter what, you're not getting a refund. You're stuck with this. Figure it out. And then I would have figured it out. I would have gotten something. I got nothing because they told me I could remedy it. So hopefully I can fix this. If not, like I said to you in the car, I said it's literally the combo gods. They give it and they take it away. They gave me $80 on Corey Feldman, and now they took $100. I guess for bragging about their generosity.
It was penance, is what it was.
Yes, they fined me. I'm paying penance is due. So I hope I can escape judgment here and keep riding the wave, but I mean, I might not. We'll see. That was my day. I struggled to find you by the Sky Bridge. That was humorous. You told me to make a left at the food court. I found another food court that wasn't even a food court. It just sold like muffins. I was sending you pictures. I felt completely just, dumb. I couldn't find my way. I found it finally. We got out of there. We bumped our boat up 2 hours, which was nice, so we got home quicker. Yeah, so that's my story. So now we can get into the whole overcrowding and the
So yeah, I mean the overcrowding. It actually reminded me of those Walker Stalker shows years
yeah.
ago that used to get shut down by the fire marshal. Um, it was way too much. And what's so funny is when you're online, when you're surrounded by people, everyone becomes like an expert in event planning. So people always offer their opinions and stuff about what to do, which is interesting. It was very similar in a lot of ways. It felt similar to Fanatics, where like people didn't know where to go, they didn't know what to do, and people were offering their suggestions for Fanatics Fest too. I do think the circumstances are different in the sense that Altered Reality has run a ton of shows, and
Yeah.
they should have known better to have than setting this up like this. But they set it up like this, and so you have people coming up with these ideas of what to do, and a lot of people's ideas. It's fascinating because the ideas that people come up with speak to the fact that they don't know anything about how cons are run. So, like, there are ideas. There are people who talk about one idea is, cap the number of tickets sold. The number of tickets is capped by the fire marshal. It's a capped number. There's a calculation that they do based on the capacity of the building and the legal and the understanding that people flow in and out of a show. And there's this formula they use, and they already have cap. That's when tickets sell out. That's because there's a formula they use. So that's something that is just a non-starter. They're going to sell as many as they can underneath that hard cap from the fire marshal. Fine. But the most common solution that people offer for these kinds of shows is to reduce the number of vendors that are available and open up more space to celebrities. Here's the problem with that. The con organizer makes its money from vendors, not from celebrities. The only money they make from celebrities is the money that they sell in tickets to the building based on someone buying tickets for a particular celebrity. So a lot of I don't mean to be disparaging, but a lot of these lower tier celebrities, they're not drawing anything. They're not moving the needle on anyone buying any tickets. So the con isn't making any money off of them directly at all. So the celebrities aren't bringing money to the con's pockets. The vendor tables are. At a show like this, when a vendor table for the weekend is like $1,500 or $2,000 or and up, depending on the size of your table, you have hundreds of vendors. That's a big chunk of change that the con is making. And every vendor they lose is thousands and thousands of dollars that they don't make in revenue. These cons are propped up financially by their vendors. That's how, if you don't want to do that. So, for example, 90s Con and the company that runs 90s Con and Christmas Con and all that, they don't run a vendor-driven show. They don't. Instead, they sell 1 million VIPs to attempt to jack up the ticket prices to their show because they only have a handful of tiny vendors, and so their business model doesn't rely on vendor space being sold. If you want to run Rhode Island Comic Con, Altered Reality could absolutely lower the number of vendors. What it would mean, it would be a significant increase to the price of the tickets. So pick your poison. The real answer, and it's not the answer that fans want to hear, but the real answer for reducing the crowding in these areas is actually to book fewer low-end celebrities. Look, let's be honest. Helen Hunt, for example, probably moved the needle on under 100 tickets sold for this show. Get rid of Helen Hunt. Lower the Rick and Morty people probably move the needle on under 50 tickets for this show. Kill the Rick and Morty. Don't want to kill them. You know what I mean? Strike their booking. Where you book a more streamlined show, and you will have more space to move around.
I actually disagree. I thought you were talking about, like when we discussed this yesterday, I thought you meant more of the people that you saw twiddling their thumbs with nobody. I think Helen Hunt literally, with the cancellation, she was my number one name. So I mean, I would.
You said yourself there was no line over there the whole time.
Yeah, but I mean,
there's no line. Objectively, there's no line. No one's paying for her. What are you doing?
But I mean, there were 25 people in the third floor that had literally nobody. So I mean, I think Helen Hunt did. She had a couple groups of pro ops.
But Helen Hunt is occupying prime real estate.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying,
who would you put in that prime real estate instead?
Ashley Eckstein,
Eh,
Colleen
I just
Clinkenbeard.
no,
Ashley
no.
Eckstein will outdraw Helen Hunt by a factor of 10.
All right, well, you can get rid of that. You could get rid of the She-Hulk girl, not Tatiana, but the other one. She was this.
No,
Kill her.
I used Helen Hunt as an example. They could have killed. Using the word "kill" we probably shouldn't use. They should have reduced the booking
Off with their
of
heads.
this show. They should have reduced the booking of this show by 30 or more guests. There were and I know that sucks because look, the Star Trek guests, they don't really draw. I love having them. I love all that. There's too many people who just they're not moving the needle. They're wasting space. They're making it hard. I mean, I hate a lot of the wrestlers. The Dudley Boys sat there on their hands the whole time. Francine sat there on her hands the whole time. Nobody at these tables. Nobody.
Yeah.
Bubba Ray at one point got up, was walking through the crowd. People didn't know who he was. These kinds of they still book the freaking the Family Guy impersonator guy.
Yes,
Peter Griffin impersonator.
That's where I think they should. I don't even mind an Ashley Eckstein not being on the ice, but you had rows upon rows. Hell, my Friday the 13th people, as nice as they weren't doing really anything. You had guests around them that I don't even know who the hell they were. You had voice actors that had nobody. If you would have taken those rows and said, all right, we're going to put Ashley Eckstein somewhere and spread them out more, and you could actually put in cues that you could have lines. Because I was reading in comments, I went up to that level of the show, and I thought to myself, you know what? I think I might get Soleil Moonfry. I might do it because it's a fun name to say. So I thought that was cool. And the second thing is, I remember her well from Sabrina. So I'm like, what the hell? I'll get her. I never even laid eyes on her because it was insane. I completely forgot. And from what I heard, I don't think I missed anything because since there's no room for lines. The volunteer who I actually read from several comments was very nasty in how they told people this. They would straight up say, and I witnessed this with other people, you can't, the line's too big, you got to just walk around. It's like you weren't even able to get on a line. How is anyone in that space going to make the money they should be making if the fan can't wait on the line? That's crazy. So I think I get your point. I will fight for Helen Hunt. I will fight for the Rick and Morty people because they did, they sold pro ops. They did a lot of things, but there were a lot of the people in that third floor that did nothing, and they should not have been there. You could have dropped 20 people off there. You could have spread out the booths of the Ecksteins and the Rick and Mortys. The wrestlers probably could have not been there. Maybe the Hardy Boys with a better layout could have drawn. Francine is not a Rhode Island Comic Con name. Dudley Boys are really not Rhode Island Comic Con names. They're just not. At New York Comic Con, there's so much space. If someone wants to throw, Joe Hendry on a booth and just sit there with him, feel free. But I mean, with Rhode Island, it creates situations like that where talent that could make money can't make money because there's no room for them to have a line.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I also think, though, you can't just eliminate all the low-end guests from a con because it is fun when cons bring in off the beaten path kind of guests, Yeah. And I think that it's the middle ground. For me, it's the middle ground guests that were problematic at this show because they were occupying space. There was no way to get to them. I hate to say it, the American Pie reunion without Stifler probably shouldn't have even happened. That all their time was wasted. And so I don't know. The answer is you cannot have that many guests. There was nowhere for people to stand. There's no way to spread your money out. There was just too many people there. The answer is to cut down the number of guests.
Peter Griffin guy should never happen. This whole thing, some cons are big enough they can have a cosplayer section. I know NYCC had some of those cosplay bimbos that stand there and they sell photos. That's cool, whatever they want to do. But you have a space like this that I don't want to see a cosplayer. I don't care. If Peter Griffin wants to walk through the crowd like an idiot and take pictures, feel free. But I don't want to see him taking up a table. I don't want to. Yes, I sound a little angry, and I am a little angry. It's ridiculous. He's a cosplayer, and there's people. That's the tier. that shouldn't be there.
I mean, but he may be paying a vendor fee. I don't even know. And I think some of these guests that we're talking about are like these quasi vendor guests. Rhode Island's is a quirky show. It's a little bit unusual.
True.
And I think the issue is that room on the third floor. I know they try to rearrange the con. I mean, they had the Back to the Future people were on a totally different floor. And I imagine for the lower tier Back to the Future guests, that mean they would, people were standing in Michael J. Fox's line for 6 hours. Then the lower tier guests, I'm not sure Tom Wilson's making any money in that case,
That's always a bad recipe for disaster. And that's part of it. Last year, you had the photo ops were spread out this year. It was smaller. It was a little more consolidated. That may have made the photo ops a smoother experience. I had no problems this year. I think I actually had more last year. But the problem was where Back to the Future was last year, you had a lot of those mid-tier, like an Ashley Eckstein would have been up there. A Soleil Moon Fry would have been up there. So that would have made the third floor better. It was too much. It was too overcrowded. And it was what it was. But guess what? The entity that had the biggest line, and I would have probably been yelling about this guest along with Peter Griffin. So that goes to show that, you can't always judge a guest by its cover. Who had one of the most surprising lines at this show?
Dogpool. Like, no joke. We were making fun of this booking. Dogpool had tremendous lines the whole show. Tremendous lines.
Yes, Dogpool killed it. So good job, Dogpool. I was wrong.
I mean, it just shows the power of kitsch and the power of memes in this era. Now I'm going to get all whatever media philosophy, but we live in a strange timeline. We live in a strange world. There's no other way to say it. It's bizarre.
Dogpool outdrew Helen Hunt. I mean,
substantially.
If Helen Hunt was sitting there, if they put Helen Hunt next to Dogpool, I think she would have been right up there with you as far as this being like just ready to hurl herself off of like a tall building.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm always one for self-awareness. So these people should know whether they're going to draw or not, and have a little bit of a clue as to whether they're going to draw. Some of these celebrities, I think their agent completely they lied to them as far as the draw that they'll have at these.
They're gassed up. They are all gassed up, and they're all told that they are like Marilyn Monroe, and they're going to just do crazy business, and they're not. A lot of them won't, and I'm glad they're lied to, because Helen Hunt. I bet 2 years from now we don't see Helen Hunt on the con scene. She's going to be one of those names that has this moment and then she goes, because she's not. I can't imagine she's satisfied with what she's doing. And listen, if they didn't lie to her, I wouldn't have her. I'd have to wait on the street, which I'm not going to do at this point in my life. So keep lying to the celebrities that aren't going to make any money, so I can meet them.
There you go. Well, that's a great way to end the conversation about Rhode Island. So any other tidbits or info about Rhode Island? Are you ready to put it to bed?
Just the idea that if you go to Rhode Island, you have to understand that the ice versus the upstairs, it's like two separate shows. I felt like I left one convention on the ice that was honestly, it's always a little cold on the ice, but
it's cold.
It's nice. Yeah, Dean Norris was complaining about the cold. I'm like, well, they got you on the damn ice. What do you expect? Like, of course it's cold. But I love being on the ice. I hate being upstairs. So it's two separate shows. If you have people that you need at Rhode Island that are mostly on the ice, you're going to have a totally different experience. Or if you go on a different day, like I think upstairs was nice on a Friday. One of our listeners said it was pretty clear on Friday. So it's a tale of two shows in some cases. If you know how to navigate a con and you plan your day out well, you're going to do fine. If you don't like being in a situation where you could die if there's an emergency and it's overcrowded, then it might not be the show for you.
What a pitch. What a pitch for this show.
All right, CC, feel free to pay, hit me up for my PayPal if you want to pay for that great commercial I just did. Yeah, other than that, I'm done. I've said it all.
All right. So, again, if you like what you hear, if you want to hear recaps of pretty much all the East Coast cons and some of the non-East Coast cons, we go to all of them, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube, on Spotify, or Apple Podcast, or hell, all three. Also, leave us likes and comments on YouTube when you have comments and questions, and leave us ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We appreciate all of them. So the only thing upcoming we have, you have that tattoo con in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you want to talk about it yet.
Next week we'll talk. Yeah,
we do have Monster Mania Oaks, PA coming up. It's going to be the big draw here is Art the Clown. I think when we recap that show, we'll talk a lot about how the change in business for Art the Clown is such a perfect encapsulation for the change in the autograph hobby and the con business as a whole over the past 3 or 4 years. I think
Oh, yeah.
his change in pricing and the way his business is run is a perfect distillation of how things have changed. So, but it's actually a really big show. Paul Reiser is going to be there. Alec Baldwin's going to be there. Gina Davis, among others. It's interesting that Paul Reiser is booked in Oaks, PA, and Helen Hunt was booked in Providence, and they couldn't somehow, line that up somehow so you can get a dual photo. Then I think Helen Hunt would have done better business if she would lined up. And by the way, I fully expect Paul Reiser to do no business in Oaks.
That's what I was about to say. Paul Reiser might do worse than Helen Hunt because they have this, this little aliens reunion. But in all honesty, I mean, let's be real. Everyone there is going for the Terrifier crew. The people that aren't just there for the Terrifier crew want the Beetlejuice duo. And then I guess after that, there's going to be a couple people for Paul Reiser. They have to figure this out. That they should only be doing appearances together. I think together they'd have a shot. I think individually, united we stand, divided we fall, and that's what the Mad About You people should be focusing on. It's
such an easy, to us anyway, unless they hate each other and don't want to be near each other, but it's such an easy slam dunk kind of thing for making these cons into something lucrative instead of something asinine. And so maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe Paul Reiser will have a huge line. I have a feeling. I'm not going to be wrong on that. And I feel bad because I think Paul Reiser is a super interesting guest conceptually. And you want, when cons take risks on bookings, you want them to do well.
Yeah.
And so when they have, when they're going to fail on a booking like that, that could have been successful with a little bit of forethought. It's annoying, but
are you not one question, and we'll get into it all next week, but are you skipping Paul Reiser for the same reason you skipped Helen Hunt?
I am. Paul Reiser on an individual level to me has no real value. I enjoyed Mad About You as a fun sitcom from the 90s. I would get a dual photo with him and Helen Hunt because to me that's interesting. But beyond that, I have no interest. So
I will get him solo, and then when they inevitably do a con together, I'll pay for the duel because I'm a moron.
I mean, I don't know. For this kind of thing, it makes no sense.
He might die. You never know.
He could. Everybody dies. So, what a way to end it. So that's it. That's it for Oaks. I'm looking forward to it being over because I don't really want to go. But I will. So if you see me at Oaks, and I have the infamous scowl on my face. You know why. I'm there for Art the Clown. I have a bunch of stuff that I let build up, and now I'm paying twice what he's worth at this con because that's the way the con business goes in 2024. So on that note, if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com. Check out our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. And time is running out for our last private signing of the calendar year, barring any last minute additions that just fall in our lap. Our signing with Paul Heyman is coming up real soon. All items and orders are due November 7th. Another con down the books. In the books, another week of con season over. I cannot wait till Thanksgiving when this is all done. I want life to go back to normal a little bit. And we do. Once we're done with con season, we do have a couple of guests who want to appear on the show, who will be able to squeeze in because we're not doing all these con recaps all the time. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Same.
All right. So on that note, for markedout.com, Marked Out Collectibles, and Marked Out Radio, I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we will see you next week after Monster Mania.